Hey guys, this is the Real Hadeel podcast, and today I have Aida Murad, where she's going to be talking about how she turned her struggle into a passion. So Aida, please, let's take it away. The first question I really wanted to ask you is, how did you get started painting?
Yes, well, it came all of a sudden. I always wanted to be a painter when I grew up in Jordan, but then I never believed that that's something that could be turned into a career. So I just kept it at home and never really explored that. But then
Hmm.
I had this huge life change where I had severe arthritis. So I have now permanent damage in my hands, and at the time I was also unemployed, so everyone was asking me, what's unique about you, Aida? Like, why should we hire you? And I know I have a lot to offer, but then when someone asks you that question, it's pretty hard to answer.
Right.
And uh, so that was a tough question. And then in parallel to the whole health problems, I just took a step back and said, why am I unique? Asked myself that question. So I just looked at my hands, I remember very clearly, and saying, okay, one, they're
Hmm.
damaged. And second, what can I do to turn those damaged hands into something beautiful?
Hmm.
And then I had the back in my mind the question of what makes me unique. And I again looked at my fingers and I said, no one has my fingerprint. So it's as simple as that. I just started painting with my fingers, just took paint and just started painting without thinking, just with the mantra of reminding myself, like, I am unique, I am unique. And this thing that is supposedly damaged is still usable. So I wanted to figure out a way to celebrate my scars into something and turn it into something beautiful.
That's awesome. That's amazing. What I like about you, and what I've been researching about you, at least looking at your Instagram, following you, kind of following your journey in a sense, um, is you were able to take something that felt so bad, right? So toxic, so almost like a monster, right? That you felt that it changed your life, but turned it into something great, right? And that's something that shows a lot about your personality and about how you perceive life. And that's something that I think most women will definitely admire about you when they start looking at the work you do. Uh, so tell me, what's one thing that when you do painting speaks to you the most? For example, a lot of artists, when they paint, it's about a mood, right? Sometimes how they feel. I know you specifically a little bit different. You take acrylic paint, correct? And kind of so yeah, explain to me why you choose acrylic paint and candle wax, for example, right? And instead of choosing to do images or use a paintbrush. I understand the whole point that we're using your hands, but um, some people, love to draw certain things, right? They'll use their hands to draw actual animals. I'm curious to why you only draw feelings. Does it make any sense?
Yeah. So my goal with it, I always, before I do anything, I ask myself the why question.
Hmm.
Why am I doing what I'm doing at this moment? What is my intention? So
Hmm.
that is an essential question to any artist, to any human being doing anything, because it's so easy to live unconsciously. And I'm really trying to program my life, or as I say, design my life to live consciously. So today, and as I'm talking to you at this moment, I have chosen abstract art. And I at the time I felt so confined and limited because I was living in a physical body that was again supposedly damaged,
Hmm.
and I wanted to find ways to feel and express freedom. And
Right.
that's why I chose abstract art, where it was just there was no limits. Everyone could interpret it into something else.
Hmm.
Like maybe tomorrow I'll turn into portraits or something else. Like I'm trying to live in the moment. Today, this Aida wants to paint abstract art using acrylic, candle wax, and
Hmm.
dried orchids. The reason I added candle wax probably in my second and third year of painting is because I wanted to express things in a bolder manner. And there
Hmm.
is something about candle wax that one reminds me of pain.
Hmm.
When the candle wax melts, it's onto the canvas. It's burning, right?
Right.
So it reminded me of the pain that we have to go through in order to create
Hmm.
something beautiful. So that for me was just that combination. But then second, it was just bolder and it
Yeah.
was 3D and expressive. And then the reason I picked orchids out of all flowers, I started with roses, but stuck with orchids because they are one of my favorite flowers, but
Mhm.
because they're so zen. You know,
Mhm.
they you look at an orchid plant, and
Mhm.
when they're not flowering, you think this plant is dead.
Right.
You are patient and foster it and take care of it enough, these flowers come back and they last for months at a time, and then they rebloom and rebloom, and it's just like so simple, like 1 to 2 orchids, let's say on average per plant,
Mhm.
and it's just one thing, like
Mhm.
so simple and powerful, and I find such beauty in that. Like I
Mhm.
feel whole when I look at an orchid. So I wanted to I grow my orchids, and then whenever
Oh
they're
wow.
about
Okay.
to, yeah, whenever they fall
I
off
didn't
the
know that.
pot, I dry them, and then I put them onto my art pieces.
I didn't know that you grew them and then you put them in your art pieces. That's very powerful. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's
and orchids, it's so funny. They're so sensitive to energy. So
really.
there's these philosophies of, there's been many tests, like if you get a bottle of water and you speak negative things to it,
Right.
those
Right.
change, and then the particles, sorry, and then same if you speak positively, same with orchids, and I would say to everything, but orchids are more sensitive than others.
Mhm.
uh, and I just give a lot of love and care, so they've yeah, I've had one orchid that has rebloomed 15 to 16 times over a period.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a
15 to
beautiful.
6, 15 to 16 times.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and they last longer. It's just a very beautiful thing.
I'm laughing because orchids are my mom's favorite plants, flowers as well. And they don't last till like only like maybe like 2 months. They never last that long. So I'm thinking, I'm like, I wonder if she's picking up on the negative energy that when my siblings are fighting or something, she's like, forget this household, I'm just gonna die.
Your mom later.
No, that's amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. That's an interesting fact. So so all these paintings that you do with the candle wax and the orchids and the different colors, which one I think took the most? I know it's a it's a hard question to ask because I know coming from an artist's point of view, every painting has a meaning behind it. Every painting took a lot of passion out of you and emotions out of you. But which one you needed the most?
It was my first big one,
Mm-hmm.
and called Hope, and it
Oh.
was the one piece. It was I went through a transition where at first it was just a coping mechanism for myself when
Mm-hmm.
I started art healing, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what, 1 plus 1 equals to whatever I want to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I want to be a full-on artist. Like I want to have exhibits. I want to share my story. I want to, I wished when I was sick that people would have told me that, oh, you can turn this struggle into something beautiful and then into a business opportunity. So that when I decided to kind of go public in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
I painted this piece called Hope, and it was a big piece, all made out of blue,
Mm-hmm.
the different shades, and white. And it was just, and I painted it like one dot at a time.
Mm-hmm.
While I was painting it, my intention was, and my mantra was, like, you have to build yourself one step at a time, and in this case, one dot at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I've noticed even with with myself, when you have a goal, like you just want to be healthy, you don't have patience for the process. Like if you want a job, you don't have patience for that process.
Right.
But such beauty to gradual process as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was just like it was a big one for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
just reminding myself to get to where I want to go. I have to persevere
Mm-hmm.
and take one step at a time. And I chose the colors blue and white because blue for me symbolizes infinity,
Mm-hmm.
and white is just purity. So those were the two words and colors that I wish to embody in myself and the way I interact with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, when I saw that piece, I cried. Oh my God, it was like letting go of my baby.
Oh,
I have
really? Okay, wow.
a beautiful household and with a beautiful family, so I'm very lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a beautiful story, by the way. That's beautiful how you took something that you felt and you were like, let me put it on now a painting. Let me put it on a canva and actually express that and let other people feel it too. Something powerful, something I've been doing research about your paintings, and what I love about it is that when you touch it, right, when you just look at it, and I'm sure I haven't been able to touch a real painting yet. So when I come see you, I want to definitely do that. But it's almost like you can feel everything that you're feeling, you know, especially when you have, because I know a lot of artists. Some artists are like sometimes against naming a painting because they want others to just interpret it the way they see it as, and some artists are like, no, I want them to feel what I'm doing, why I made this, right? And every time you named one, I looked at it and I was like, wow, it does feel like that. It really does. It really does play an influence, and you can feel what you felt when you did it. If you go on a deeper level, at least. I don't know. I paint, so I can do that. Maybe some people who don't paint, they're like, I don't know what I'm feeling. Like, you know?
Yes, like I've enjoyed I've had about 6 art exhibits in exhibitions in DC. My favorite part of it is the storytelling piece, but it's not about me talking and saying my story. It's
Mm-hmm.
about hearing what people interpret and feel from this, and why I keep on like painting and being an artist is the storytelling piece, because
Yeah.
story is so healing. And the for each painting, my intention was, for example, to one piece was hope, one piece was love, one piece was about celebrating death, and so a lot of really core emotions and intense emotions. And I'm not joking, for some pieces that I didn't say the name or the story, every person I asked them, what do you feel when you see this? It was exactly my intention of the painting. So
Mm.
it was fascinating to see that happen. And
Right. That
yeah,
like energy that you all felt. That's interesting.
yeah. But again, it goes back to storytelling. It's just each curve with each stroke is a piece of the story. And
Mm.
my goal with art is to touch like our subconscious and our conscious minds,
Mm.
something deep, and with the hopes of healing or allowing people to see something that they didn't know existed within themselves.
Mm. That's very powerful. And I love that because that's something I struggled with many, many years. You know, I always said, you know, when you grow up and you're in, especially since we're both Middle Eastern, you understand the culture behind what we have to go through. And it's always been like a go, go, go mode, right? Like, go to school, do this, be the captain of this team, try out for this, you know, be the president of this person, this organization. It's never been like, hey, what do you want to do, right? Like, what do you really want to do? And are you even into sports? Do you even like being a doctor? Like, what is it that you want to do, right? And before I was like, okay, I get it, the money and, you know, the choose professions that make sense realistically. But what I didn't know until I know now, and I'm sure you feel the same way too, is that when you do something you're passionate about, you always find a way to be successful in it.
100%. I'm a
It's
firm
just,
believer that money is a byproduct to
mhm,
passion, love,
yes.
hard work. Like you
Mhm.
cannot do the hard work. Like if you just sit in your bed and like think that okay, because you love something, it's gonna come to you.
Right.
Happen. Like I have a simple formula for life.
Okay.
Um,
Share it.
I'm hoping to write a book, hopefully, about it. I'll let you know once that's in process.
Yes. We'll do another podcast.
So it's basically very simple. It's like one, we first have to know what we want,
Okay.
and so few people really know what they want.
100%.
You go to the next step is believe that you can have it.
Hmm.
That I found was the biggest struggle of people. Like they say, "Oh, I want to work for X company or I want to start this," but do they really deep down believe that that is possible?
Hmm.
Do they believe that they deserve it?
Hmm.
So they usually are their own barriers in that case. And then third, after you know what you want and you believe you can have it, you have to let it go. Because
Yes.
if you don't feel full by yourself
Hmm.
and you will only be happy once you gain that, you will never get it. Or
Hmm.
you might have a taste of it and then it'll go away.
Hmm.
Because you just can't sustainably attract something if you feel incomplete.
Right.
So there's so many layers to this formula, that and then it needs constant fostering, because I have doubts, I have insecurities, I have all this stuff, so I need to keep on reminding myself. I like track my habits. I'm
Smart.
launching a habit tracker. I'll tell you that later. But basically, to see like every thought, every word, every action is either taking you closer to what you want to do and what you believe you can do, or it's taking you backwards. There's
Mm-hmm.
no neutral ground, no such
Mm-hmm.
thing. So what you watch on TV is impacting you. What you think by yourself in your bed is impacting you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my formula.
No, I mean, I love it. I love it because you're speaking really right into me because that's something I struggle with almost every day, right? Before I started doing this, it was like a constant, like it, because, running my own agency, right? Being able to work with my brother, he believes that everything's going to work out, right? Sometimes I was the one who's always needed more convincing, just needed more convincing always. Because when you grow up with such a limited mindset and then you're brought into this world where it's like, wow, it's limitless.
Right.
It's hard to and I don't know if maybe most women feel like this, or maybe everybody feels like this. I don't know what it is, that sometimes you just feel like you don't deserve all of it, right? Or I always say my biggest weakness is receiving. I have a hard time letting people help me. I have a hard time letting myself believe that I am deserving or worthy of what has to come for me, or what doors are going to open for me. And to the belief part is so important. And I think people surpass it all the time. They pass it. They're like, oh, okay, I believe. Yeah, yeah. Next page, right?
Exactly.
But that's one thing that's like in your brain, in your mind consistently. And I have to always tell myself all the time. I'm like, Hadeel, remember, what is your purpose again? You can do it. You can do it.
Right. Exactly. It's so funny. So with art, um, I grew up never believing that there is a career path.
Mm-hmm.
I kept it to myself and never
Mm-hmm.
fostered it. But then because I went through so much suffering, I feel like I like a part of me died and was reborn.
Right.
And I didn't let any space for doubt to sneak in. Like
Mm-hmm.
people say I had 6 exhibitions with no professional training.
Really?
Thankful that I sold most of my pieces. And the thing is, this is where the magic comes in, is that I never approached an art exhibit. Like they usually found me. And this, I'm not saying this to be egotistic or anything, but it's just to
Right.
show that I realistically didn't have time to go pursue finding like art exhibitions, art galleries, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was working full time at a nonprofit. I'm building another startup, so I just didn't have capacity. So I just set an intention. I would love to share my art with the world. And I just knew, like, I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. And I'll go to a cafe and I know I'll meet the right person who magically has an art gallery.
Right.
And then, but the thing is, I would meet people who have an art gallery, but that's where the hard work has to come in. Like you can't just expect them to offer something. You have to be like, seize the moment. Life sent you this moment. It is orchestrated. What are you going to do to seize it? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm shocked to see how many people manifest things that they want, but never take it to like the touchdown moment.
Right. The next level, right?
Exactly. So life really I really believe like it can help you in any way you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are manifesting exactly
Mm-hmm.
what you put down paper, what's possible.
I like what you're saying. Sorry, just the thing here. I like what you're saying here because this is very crucial, and I think most of the viewers that are watching needs to really like understand and listen to what you're saying, because I didn't believe, like, when people would, like, I don't know how to, I had such a limited mindset. Oh my goodness, like I don't know how to I don't even know how to describe it. But when people used to tell me like, oh, you just have to manifest it, this and that, and then it'll just come. I'm like, okay, like, sure, like that's gonna really work, right? But as soon as you said something very important, you said, I really wanted to do this, and I told myself, I'm gonna find a way, right? So you're gonna manifest it and let it go, and then put action behind it, right?
Right.
You're doing something that you're passionate about, right? Now you're just automatically happy because you're doing something you're passionate about, which then this energy is bringing out of you, right? Which is released to people around you that's also somewhat similar to you, and then you guys are attracted to each other, right? Because likes attract to likes. And then from there, you naturally open the door for yourself. Now, someone who's not into what they're doing have to constantly force those doors to be open, which sometimes could be a good or bad thing. But in reality, you have to be honest with yourself: are you going to be happy doing it or not? And this is like this is gold, because you just said to yourself, you didn't go out of your way to necessarily, you know, ask for someone to sponsor you, ask for this. People just came to you because they understood, they felt it, right? They felt it was only natural to come
Right.
to you.
Something I would add to this is I have to be very clear with my values. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I stood for within art? Again, the why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
If you're clear you are in that department, the quicker things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll re-emphasize that you have to work towards it. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I was walking, like I had at the time my third exhibit, and I wanted the next one, and I was ready. So I just didn't have any opportunities, didn't meet anyone. So I was walking around in Georgetown, and then I just see like this new pop-up opening.
Mm-hmm.
So I take this picture, quickly send them, here's my website. By the way, I can't underestimate like the importance of a website for any artist or any
Yeah.
creative. If you don't have a website at this day and age, you don't exist.
Right.
And a powerful website makes your life easy. So I
Mm-hmm.
just sent them my website. It has a video, it has my art, it has a
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, and it does all the talking. So it
Right.
expedites. So I did work and put like the core foundations there.
Mm-hmm.
They emailed me saying, "Great, we want you in. Come for a quick interview," and that's it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, but thing is, life doesn't come with it without its challenges, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is why I go back to the values point. It was great. I was part of that exhibit, but then midway, I just realized, like, you know, we don't have the same values. Me and the person who's curating the art
Oh,
gallery was.
wow.
So I had a really tough decision to make because it was Christmas time. It was a time when most people buy, and I was very uncomfortable with the place. It's just, it wasn't zen. I would say it was very chaotic. It was all about selling, 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 selling. Which
Mm-hmm.
selling is very important, but there's a desperate selling, and then there's like a healthy approach to selling, and that was unfortunately the first part, the desperate one. And I do not stand for them. I
Mm-hmm.
just know that money will not be sustainable.
And
So
it won't
yeah,
be, it won't be given, your paintings won't be given to the right owners.
exactly. All that is just, it just, so I stopped for a second and I said, okay, I really wish that this would work out because it's just much easier for me to keep my stuff there. It's in central location and I have minimal things to do, but it just was against my values, and I knew that there was an energy behind that in the future I didn't feel right with it. So I asked myself the question again, why am I doing art?
Mm-hmm.
And it was clear that I have to remove my stuff from there. And I said, you know what, that's fine, somehow something will work for Christmas. And sure enough, I removed my paintings.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about my experience and saying how important your values are when you are in business, because it is so easy to get drowned that like that carrot stick of money.
Right.
That sure enough, a lot of people bought my paintings because they understood that I am not an artist for the sake of just selling.
Mm-hmm.
Selling again is very important, but it's just I have values,
Right.
and everything else follows. Yeah, so that's just a piece of advice I would say to anyone in business, is just make sure you're clear on your why and
Mm-hmm.
your values, and pick the right partners,
Mm-hmm.
because that also goes into your branding. That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. I teach branding in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot emphasize this enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you are an emerging artist or
Mm-hmm.
an amateur artist, whatever, whoever you display your art with
Mm-hmm.
is a part of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be branded with something that was chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a long-term also investment. Even
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't sell anything at the time, it would have affected my brand.
Right.
So
That's very powerful, because I think, like you said, some people get really distracted with the stick of money right in front of you, right? Like literally, right, just right there, because they're like, okay, well, this is good, but it's very short-term thinking. You have to, when you're running a business, it's a very long-term game. You know,
right.
very little people are successful within a year. You know, and sometimes if they are, great, but it's still a long-term game, right? Even the ones that are successful in a year can sometimes end up crashing in 5 years because they really didn't play the long-term game. They played the short-term game.
Right.
So really surrounding yourself with the right partners, surrounding yourself with the right values, right? And keep reminding yourself each and every day what was your purpose and why, and making sure that your message that's brought to your fans, basically exposed to your fans, is consistent. It makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. But then I'll go to the consistency piece, just to double click on that. That you
Yeah,
have
of
to
course.
to your inner truth. Like
Mhm.
today, again, that's why I said today I am painting abstract art.
Mhm.
Tomorrow, I may be attracted to channel something differently. Like is it
Mhm.
portrait? So it's that's where this is one of my struggles with art. Is are you painting to please people, or are you being true to your
Mhm.
authentic self? You
Right.
know, Rupi Kaur, I'm sorry, I'm butchering her name. She has a beautiful poem about creating art. Are you creating art for your, again, channeling your inner truth and being authentic?
Mhm.
Or are you painting to please people? Because the second you paint to please people, people will feel it.
Mhm.
And it's no longer Aida Murad's art. It's that Aida Murad, please accept me art. You know?
Yeah,
And
it's true.
wants that because they want to look up to you. They want,
Mhm.
everyone's trying to find their authentic self and to be unapologetically themselves. And that is very hard. And I would say,
Mhm.
especially for Arab women,
Mhm.
it was very hard to break that shell and say, I am who I am, and it's okay if you don't like it.
So you said something important, especially for Arab women. You were saying how this is a very big problem. We tend to, and it's true, like we tend to please each other. We tend to please our families. We tend to please people. And when you come into a world where you're like, okay, this is my world and I need to do my own thing, pleasing doesn't come into that sentence.
Right.
It doesn't even help you become successful. So it's just, that's something very, very interesting you said that.
And it's still a struggle, honestly, with me, because like there are some angles of me that I just want to express our femininity and our beauty,
Mm-hmm.
and that involves things that you don't really talk about in the Middle East. Like the first painting I ever sold was about celebrating um, the transition from being a girl to a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and how does that feel?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if I feel like if I displayed that in Jordan, I wouldn't have been able to. Maybe they would have been receptive to it, but it was my own insecurity of not being accepted. I would never have done it here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that I need to work on myself,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that, for example, the Middle East region is changing and it is becoming more receptive to art, to female founders, to all that stuff. So it's finding that balance of, is it you who's keeping yourself backwards, or is it people?
Mm-hmm. That's very important because one thing I've realized, taking my podcast for example, right? Just try to tie it with you because I'm trying to relate. And I was always told, like, don't put yourself out there like that. Don't talk about certain topics. Don't do this. Don't call yourself the real Hadeel. Don't be just Hadeel Gaida, or be this. And it was funny because I felt very controlled. I was like, wait a second. I was like, hold up, this is my idea. I was like, none of you guys are going to be doing this, right? So why do I have to sit here and please you and continue to do what you tell me to do, but I'm the one doing all the work?
Right.
Sometimes you just got to be a little bit stubborn or hard-headed, I say. So not always a bad thing.
Exactly. I love it.
And you know what? People love it. I've come across, for instance, my clients. Sometimes they'll say certain things or they're limited minded, and then I challenge them. I'm like, no, like this is not how it's supposed to be, or do something different, or let's take a different approach with your marketing. And then they're just kind of like thrown off because no one tends to speak to them like that, right? But in reality, it's like you need to hear that. And unfortunately, like you said, you won't work with someone who doesn't really follow the same values, doesn't follow the same path as you, or is willing to challenge and take some risks.
And you remind me of the concept of failure.
Mm.
So at least I had to work on my appetite for risk,
Hmm.
and thus, whenever you work on risk, you have to work on failure.
Right.
So I've developed, I feel like, a healthy balance.
Hmm.
I take risks, and if I fail, which I hope I don't, but I know I will, and I have, that it's okay. I'm proud of myself that I tried this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so funny. I have like this one painting that I love, you know, and it just hasn't, it's never sold. And I asked myself, is this a failure? What do I categorize? What is the definition of failure?
Mm-hmm.
And I just took a moment and stopped that thought, and I said, Ida, you should be proud of yourself. You are
Mm-hmm.
going out of your comfort zone. You are trying new things, new styles, learning about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that is bound to happen. Failure along the route, along
Right.
the, and then success will also will always follow. But that's something that people forget. You know, what is consciously your appetite
Mm-hmm.
for, and what is your absorption of failure? You can absorb it negatively, like I am worthless, or
Mm-hmm.
you can say, wow, I am so proud of myself. I
Mm-hmm.
tried.
Right. No, that's amazing. If you don't mind me asking, which painting were you saying that wasn't really selling? If you don't mind me.
Yeah. It's the flowers of life, and
Okay.
it's a. I love it. It was inspired by my mother, and it's all about being incredibly kind, and it's filled with the orchids, and I
Was it
love
pink? Pink and
pink.
white?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
That one's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Then it's so funny because I realized that I didn't really want to sell it. Because when I asked
Oh.
why, I was too attached to it.
Mm.
And yeah, it's going back to the question because I'll have like exhibits. People will say it's beautiful or wouldn't say anything, but then no one basically would buy it. And I'm like,
Mm.
what's wrong with it? And then, you know, it's so funny. Then after I just looked at it and I said,
Yeah.
maybe I don't really want to sell you. And then the
Mm.
next day I got an email from someone in Minnesota saying, I want to buy this piece. And I said, well, you have to come pick it up because it has orchids and it's very delicate, etc. I just, and then I realized that's why I blocked the sale
Mm.
because I want it to be for me.
Mm. That's so funny. You know, I till this day haven't created something that I said I want to keep. Is that weird to say? Something about my paintings. I'm just always like I don't know how to just I don't know if I'm weird, but I just like giving them.
No, it's interesting. So now this was about 6 months ago, when I got that email.
Mm.
And I actually meditated on it a bit and looked at the painting, and I had to be ready to let it go. Like, for example, going back to the first painting I talked about, the hope piece, I wasn't ready to let it go for 2 years because it would meant
Wow.
so much for me.
Mm.
And the second I remember at Raw Artists, that exhibit at Howard Theater, I just looked at it and I'm like, I'm ready for Aida 6.0, you know, and
Mm.
Aida 6.0, let's go of the past. And that whole piece really was my symbol of arthritis coming into my life and me
Mm.
consciously wanting to change that. So when I just let it go, someone bought it, you know? So
That's
for me,
weird. Yeah.
I need time with my paintings.
No. I mean, everyone's different, and it's funny when you said, "I need to let this go. I need to let go of my past." I literally got chills. I'm like already getting goosebumps. I guess you can't see it here, because that's something that I didn't think about it, but you just like made me take like a couple years back in my mind, like what happened in my past, and I'm just like, wow, maybe that's why it's so easy to let go of some of these paintings, because like you said, it's like you held on to it for so long because you're attached to it. And when you finally took the time to say, okay, khalas, like it's time to go. You need to leave. I'm done, you know? For me, I was like very much like, I would turn to painting as a way for me to just calm down, right? Because naturally, I'm a very hot, I don't know if you are like this, but naturally, I'm a very much of a hothead. And
Yeah.
and I didn't like that. So I worked very, very hard to stop from being like that. And sometimes I took the route of not speaking, which then resulted to me being a really big hothead. And then I went to
Right.
and also fighting, self-defense. But that's a different story. But the painting really help me help me be more of a woman. But if that makes any sense, be more of a lady on how to
Yeah.
take care of things. And
Powerful Hadeel is you knew where what you are, where you are. You know
mhm,
how people know and
yeah,
have the courage to say, this is where I am,
hmm
this is where I'd like to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to experiment with things to see
Right.
how I can get there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. I think that you have two very different but very necessary outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't just do art. I also love dancing.
Yeah.
I love other things, and I keep on experimenting, and I try,
Mm-hmm.
and I just follow my gut.
I mean, as you should, because sometimes not every feeling is meant to be released in the same way, you know.
Oh my, exactly. Power to that. Underline, exclamation.
Highlight, because it's true. You can't, you know, when I'm feeling just frustrated or too much is going on in my head, painting, 100% painting. You know, just now take it. I don't want to ever see this again. I don't want to look at it. Bye. You know, masaleme. But fighting, you know, that's when you're mad, you just want to punch something. So you're good with that. That's easy. That's self-explanatory. But I love it. I love it a lot. I wanted to go into one thing I really wanted you to talk about, because something that most artists struggle with. You said something that when you value your work and you value what you're doing, it's easier to sell. What
Right.
are some ways for you? What are some ways that you've done? Like, for instance, what have you done in current? What are you doing currently, and what are you going to do that's really going to help you sell your work? For example, I know you're doing a lot of workshops, and now you're in Jordan, correct? Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So you have to start with the basics. Is
Mm-hmm.
again, knowing who you are, what
Mm-hmm.
kind of artist you want to be, and that requires a lot of self-reflection.
Right.
And I highly, highly recommend finding a professional,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a life coach, whatever you want. But because it really helps to talk with someone
Mm-hmm.
about your aspirations, your values, and identifying that. So if you can't afford to hire someone, then find a really good accountability buddy or someone who you can be very honest with, because that self-reflection time is essential,
Mm-hmm.
and is one of the foundational building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing is a website, like your digital brand. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
I do digital branding in DC, because it will help you with so much. Like, really,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to talk a lot, like have 3 meetings just to explore something that could happen or could not
Right.
happen. So the way I expedite this is I send them my website, which really embodies how I want people to feel, which
Mm-hmm.
for me is I want them to feel inspired. I want
Mm-hmm.
them to feel expanded
Mm-hmm.
and hopeful. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've tested it out with many people. And the first question I see, like, oh, I ask when people find my website, I'm like, tell me, like, what did you think? Like, how? And I'm always receptive to feedback because I always want to improve.
Right.
So so after self-reflection and
Mm-hmm.
creating a digital brand, meaning simply a website. You don't have to be active on social media. Of course, if you are, it will help you a
Mm-hmm.
lot, because two of the exhibits found me through Instagram.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So they found me through Instagram, and that was just very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, um, even who follow me, just I bumped into 3 people at Whole Foods telling me, "Are you Aida the artist?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I know how do you know? They're like, Instagram. So what I do, because I go back to my values, is like, I don't want just another follower. I want a meaningful connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure that if I meet someone who follows my work, I want to have coffee with them. I
Right.
want to know what inspires them. What are they
Mm-hmm.
going through? Because a core piece of my work is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Because my why is I want to share my work for, first, my own healing,
Mm-hmm.
and second, to help others heal through whatever
Mm-hmm.
you're going, whether it's an emotional, mental, physical struggle. So I see that through till the end.
Mm-hmm.
An artist it doesn't make sense, you're thinking, oh, why does she have to go have coffees with strangers? But
Right.
that goes back to my values.
Right.
So, um, another thing, so for me, personalization and
Mm-hmm.
the connection piece is essential. So those are obviously one of my values. So everything that I do, like when you go to an art exhibit, one of my art exhibits, you'll see the painting, but then you'll see the price, the name of the piece, and the story, and everything is handwritten,
Mm-hmm.
because that adds to my personalization. Like I want you to be, like, I want to write it. I don't want to use a computer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though it might look more professional, whatever, but that doesn't fit with my brand and why I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing. Um, and then I always make sure to send thank you notes. I print a picture of the person and I thank them for taking the time of even
Mm-hmm.
coming. Not just
Right.
for people who bought, but for people who came, who took
Mm-hmm.
from their time, who could have done a million and other things, but chose to come to the exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like going back to figuring out who you want to be and how you want people to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I guess where am I heading? I don't really know. Um, no, it's
I
I
mean,
have bits and pieces and thoughts. It's just like I launched art classes in DC
mm-hmm.
where I realized I wanted more of a stronger
Hold on, Ida.
community woman.
Can you repeat that just because it says like
Yeah, yeah.
okay, go ahead.
So I launched in DC art classes, and it was all about art, food, and meaningful conversations.
I love it.
Why did I launch that? Because I needed to fulfill something missing in me, which was
By the
community.
way, I was gonna go to that workshop, but it was sold out when I tried to buy the ticket. I was like, no, I really wanted to go. Anyway, continue.
It's been incredible demand, and I'm very thankful. But basically, the reason I did that is because I realized like I miss my family and I miss community, and I wanted to establish that. And I realized in DC there's so many individual people coming with
Mm-hmm.
that missing piece.
The
So
community.
community, exactly. So there's nothing better that brings community other than food. So
Mm-hmm.
I start the class with you sit on the floor, I make Middle Eastern breakfast, and we come in with an intention. So every class has a different theme. Like first theme was first class was January 2018, so it's really about what is your intention for 2018. So
Mm-hmm.
we all went around the room, said about our biggest accomplishment in 2017, our biggest hardship, and then our intention 2018. So we were very raw and vulnerable, and that's why it's a small group, only 4 women,
Mm-hmm.
um, 5 overall with myself. And then we go break out into our art stations, and everyone paints with their hands. So I teach them how to paint with their
Mm-hmm.
hands, their fingers, candle wax, and props.
Mm-hmm.
But then I noticed like people, after like 45 minutes of painting, their art changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they came with a spirit, and then they are
Yeah.
45 minutes in with a different one. And I realized it's judgment, the self judgment. So I incorporated dance breaks. So we stop all of a sudden, and we just dance and let loose. And then we go back with the intention of not judging our work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one, and it's been magic to see people create beautiful things and leave saying, I didn't know I was good at art. Awesome. So that's one thing. I'm still exploring what I want to do tomorrow. It's just I'm now helping build this startup. That's
Right.
I became part of that startup as a mentor, teaching people the business of art.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really passionate. If I could summarize myself in one sentence, is all I want to do is help people find their passions and turn it into a business.
Mm-hmm.
So through this, it's called Localize, the startup. We link youth to mentors and help them increase their career readiness
Mm-hmm.
so they can leave college with a job that they're passionate about
Mm-hmm.
and know how to get to. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm also doing digital branding stuff, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. And then
No, yeah.
yeah, and then finally, sorry, I'll just say
No.
I'm in July be in New York with Eileen Fisher Leadership
Ah,
Institute.
yes.
Yeah, so I'll be working. It's an incredible program. It's for boys and girls who are in high school and college, and helping them to become mindful business leaders.
Mm-hmm.
It takes their approach, again, is like summarized in my whole being. Because you can't separate the personal and professional. Like if you are not happy personally, you're not happy professionally. Whether
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't show now, it will show later on.
Mm-hmm.
So we take people and just help them be confident, be more mindful, be more like find ways to learn about themselves
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole sustainable fashion piece that's specific to Eileen Fisher. So I joined them, and even the way I joined them is like a magical story. That
No, no, share it. I want to hear it.
so basically, so I was sick for a while, and part of the arthritis is it was very hard to walk, and my old job required me to be in meetings a lot. So I'll go to the World Bank in tennis shoes, and I was very young, so people would be like, "Who's this kid coming in tennis shoes?" So I was very embarrassed. Really affected my self confidence, and it's just because when you're sick, the only thing you want to feel is normal. And for me, normal was like being able to wear a normal dress and normal shoes and just look normal at least.
Right.
So long story short, I went to hundreds of stores just to find shoes that were professional and comfortable, meaning like quite padded. So that's when I met Eileen Fisher, like the brand. And she's a designer who is based in the US and is all about ethical and sustainable fashion. That's the whole supply chain to make sure everything's organic, minimal water use, etc. So then when I was healed, so I wore her shoes every day for 2.5 years. I call them, I have like 20 pairs. I call them my soldiers.
My little soldiers.
So then when I was cured officially in November, I was sitting with this friend and just telling him, like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to design my life in a way that I will not take it for granted. I want to wake up remembering that this day is a gift, because I experienced days where I was suddenly paralyzed and I couldn't move. So I've gone a second or third chance. So I told them about, I'm going to write a letter to Eileen Fisher and Chef Gantz, this other inspiring person, just thanking them. And I said, I wish I could work for Eileen. That'd be fun. And then he just reminded me, he's like, Aida, that has life in it. You have to go after it. How many organizations would make you want to go to work feeling like that?
Wow.
Finally hit me. I'm like, you're right. I have to go work for Eileen Fisher. So I just finally, after a year of not knowing what I wanted to do really, it came like that. And that's where it's very important to surround yourself with people who inspire you and make you a better person. So yeah, think about who are those gems in your life and foster them. Anyway, so long story short, in March, I met Eileen herself. I thanked her.
Wow.
And I did the work. I figured out where she's speaking. I traveled for 4 hours. But I was clear in my intention, and I said, this is the only place that I want to be part of. Because she gave me so much. And long story short, I'm starting, I spoke at their sustainable fashion panel in New York, April 4th, and it was so surreal, just like, oh, I manifested it. And then now I'm starting in July with the Eileen Fisher Leadership Institute as a work, helping them deliver workshops. I'm going to teach the students different things about art, about branding, about how do you embrace yourself as a whole person.
That's fantastic. That's phenomenal.
The magic can happen.
Well, I mean, because you wanted so bad that you made the opportunity occur, happen for yourself. Actually, when you go to New York, you should really look into. Have you heard of the Wing? It's a co-office space for women only. They just opened one in Georgetown. They just opened one.
Awesome.
You should really reach out to the Wing in New York because they're looking for diverse culture there. And I think you'd be perfect fit. And they have like a studio there and like where you can hold workshops and maybe even like interview someone or it's phenomenal what they provide for women, and it's under so many celebrity top producing women who supported this and are putting money into it. So I think you should really maybe check it out. Look it up. Yeah, look it up. It's amazing. I just thought about you, so I was like, this will be good.
I will definitely look into it. But it all goes back to that. The formula that, like, if you want to go full circle, you know what you want, which took years to figure that out, and then I actually believed I could have it. Third, I let it go. I just did God. I'm like, okay, this is like each person's different, but for me, I pray all that stuff, and I just let it go.
No,
fulfill their dreams. Just, yeah.
Right. No, I love that. I absolutely love that. I mean, Ida, I think that you inspire many, and it's you give them hope, right? And you show you're a good role model to show that it is possible, and if I can do it, you can do it too. And to tie it all back with the business aspect, to you, you're like, I don't know what I do. You're like, I just do a lot of these other things. But honestly, and from a business point of view, what you're doing is you're creating credibility for yourself, right? You're doing these workshops. You're going and you're speaking at these events. You're attending events. You're meeting these top producing women and different people who are also artists. It just shows that you are in this space. You're credible, and you're an artist, and you're actually serious about what you're doing, which makes people take you seriously for your work. So so anybody who's listening, this is a great strategy she's doing. Branding yourself is so important when you do art, especially when you're in a creative industry. It's 100% much needed, like she said. So the next question I wanted to ask you actually was, what do you want to see more from the youth, the rising artists, right? I know you're mentoring a lot of them now. What do you want to see more of in the professions that they want to take?
Wow, I want to see more people following their truth.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
People know what their truth is, and I feel that I personally believe it's a never-ending question, because your truth constantly is changing because you're experiencing different things every single day. But I wish, or I hope, to see more people committed to that, committed to finding out what their truth is right now, and pursuing that, and manifesting it, and working hard to make it happen. Because life will test you regardless of where you stand, where you are. So you might as well be tested while being true to yourself. And that's why I go back to, like, if you could summarize me in one sentence, it's I'm all about finding people's passions and turning it into business. Because money comes and goes, friends come and go, and all that stuff. So when you're true to yourself, you have something beyond.
Right. I love it. And you're creating the stepping stones for yourself as well, which is powerful. I love it so much. Now, I know this is a woman's podcast, and I know most of the viewers will probably be women and men, hopefully. What's one advice you would give to women out there who are single moms, or maybe just straight out of college, have no career path or no choice, don't really know how to find their truth? What's one advice you would give them to kind of baby step to that, to find that passion?
Right. So I do believe women can be superwomen, meaning we know how to multitask. I've realized we love men, but it's very hard for them to multitask on very big things. So we do not give ourselves enough credit. But if we stopped, and one advice I would give is basically stop and give yourself some time. If you cannot afford more than 10 minutes, then start with 10 minutes. If you can afford an hour, then give yourself an hour. But be very conscious with what you do in that hour or 10 minutes. It's connecting with yourself. It's putting pause. We tend to give. And like you said, Hadeel, like, we have difficulty receiving. Because especially Arab women, we're just, that's how we're raised,
very motherly. Very mother is very giving. It's very
beautiful and needs to be constantly fostered, but it needs the balance. Like, ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself? It could be anything from a spa treatment to like journaling to whatever, but it shouldn't end there, and it should be constantly growing, and it should have a clear direction. What is bringing me purpose, life, joy in this moment? And I see it. I tell my mother all the time, I'm like, you are the foundation of this family. If you do not take care of yourself, like a building, like, you're the foundation, and we're the stories. If you crumble, we're all crumbling, So take care of yourself, especially to the mothers out there. What you feel deep down inside, children feel it. Absorb it. So just don't fake it.
Right. Take care of yourself. I mean, Will Smith, I forgot her name, Jada, I can't remember his wife's name. She said it best. She was like, she had an interview with someone, and she was like, my family, Like I run the family, you know, although my husband's the head of the household, right? I'm the neck, right? And the neck turns it any way she wants. And in reality, if you're not, what she's basically saying is like, if you're not taking care of yourself as a woman, no one else is going to be okay, because someone needs to lean on you, right? You know, as a mother, you always are leaned on. You're always like, mom, what do I do? Mom, you know, how do I do this? How do I say this? And if you're not mentally ready and physically happy with yourself and what you're doing, you're never going to be, you know, unfortunately, a good mom. Like, it's going to be hard to be just a good mom. Doesn't mean you're not a good person. It just means you can't be a good mom, a good woman, you know, to this world. So.
And no, and you want to upgrade from being good to great to unbelievable.
Exactly.
That's the never-ending growing, like stepping stone or ladder.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. So I know that you have to go soon. But the last question I want to ask you is, where can we find you? Where can my viewers go out and follow you and search your work?
Yeah, so my website is simple, aidamurad.com. It's AIDAMURAD.com. My social media, just Instagram, Murad Aida, so MURAD, AIDA.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Twitter, there's Facebook, so same
handle. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I love hearing from people. So my email is also my first name, last name @gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Always here to hear people's stories. They have a question on what should they do next in their career. I'm currently based in Jordan for the next couple of months. Then we'll be back in New York. So I love meeting people in person too. Again, life is all about the meaningful connection. So yeah.
Perfect. I love it. I'll make sure to put out there after the video where they should find you and all your handles and everything, your website, so they can buy your paintings hopefully very soon.
Thank you, Hadeel, and thank you for creating this beautiful space. Vulnerable and to learn. So
no, I'm happy to do it, and thank you I'm honored to have you on my podcast. So thank you very much. Of course. Now, guys, if you get a chance, check out Aida's work. She's phenomenal. I've seen it. I haven't been able to go to an exhibit yet, but hopefully I will be able to soon when she comes back from Jordan. And if you haven't, you should do the same. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and thank you, Aida.
Bye.
Bye.